not always the case, is it? And there seems to be an assumption that a strategy like that absolves us of responsibilities and costs. And I don't think that's true either. My experience is that to do that well costs money. You have to have an infrastructure of training, support and monitoring. I think, again, partnership working is problematic. It's not in our gift to make sure our partners are as stable as we would like them to be, or make decisions that don't have consequences for us. And an example for that is care and repair, which now charge for services. Before they used to be free, and that's having a huge impact on some of our most vulnerable people. I think there are real safeguarding issues with domiciliary care, with personalised budgets and market-led providers. I think we need to do something more in terms of vulnerable people living at home. I've referred a case of cuckooing recently, and I've not heard anything back about that at all. And I do think there's a serious omission in this document, which is about how we safeguard the homeless. And I would like to ask if there's going to be a serious case review into the recent death of a homeless woman on our streets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll ask Anna in a moment to come back on these points. Councillor Morris, did you want to?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you, Sandra, for all the work you've done in adults, and I really relish getting stuck into a new portfolio, but I'm sure you'll do a great job in the corporate area that you're going into. But I just wanted to fully say I fully support this paper, because this is the way we shape services going forward. This sort of thing is going to be critical in helping us to sort of reduce need, define need and meet need and all that sort of thing, and that's what's going to be very key going forward in order for us to contain the budgets within adults and other areas. So I fully commend this paper, and I'm excited by the outcomes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Adam.
Councillor Stamborough, do you have a point?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So there's some big asks in the document, and some ambitious perhaps changes to how things work at the moment. And in terms of what we're going to do and how we see things being in 3 years' time, and which is all good. My question to Councillor Naden-Hawley would be: how will the council ensure that the service area has the resources and capacity to deliver on this document?
Okay, thank you. Anna, Director, would you like to respond to some of the points, questions raised, and then we'll hand back to Sandra?
Yes, so Councillor Stone has picked up the point about the user's voice. I thought I had responded on the question of BME and what we do in terms of assessing different needs and how we meet them. And I think I've said before, whilst we don't have any very specific services that are designed for particular groups of the community like that, we do have facilities to support those groups too. And we do record and track kind of the needs of those services and respond to them. But I'm happy to give a fuller answer to Councillor Stone on that question. In terms of the user involvement, our plan is to involve Healthwatch in user forums and engagement with wider communities to make sure we get the widest possible reach in terms of equalities and different groups, and make sure all of them are represented. But we'll also be doing road shows, we'll also be talking to partners, voluntary sector, GPs and health, as you would expect, and of course our own staff as well. So there's quite a comprehensive programme which we'll be publishing in terms of that engagement. In question, in terms of buying and commissioning services, that means commissioning in the widest sense. That doesn't necessarily mean buying from the market in the ways we traditionally have. It might mean engaging community groups. We're talking to some voluntary sector providers at the moment about doing some of the less statutory type elements of our service, because if they can do it better and we can fund and support them, then why wouldn't we? So there is nothing barred in saying that, and if it means another partner delivers them like health, then that's also open for discussion. So this is actually about looking at the best way to do that. In terms of utilising community support and families, absolutely right. There are many, many people. We have services where we are the only responder to somebody living alone who doesn't have a family or a neighbour or someone can help them. And there's no presumption that will be the case. And where they don't have that, it's up to us to kind of help and support families using the community in any way we can. To me, key to all of that is the unitaries. We need to work much more closely, and it exactly is the plan to work with district and boroughs to organise ourselves in communities around, as we talked about yesterday in the members' briefing, community hubs where we can engage with housing, welfare officers, all those other people to work around and support people who otherwise might be isolated. In terms of partnership working, no, it's not in our gift, that's true, but never has the relationship between health and social care particularly been closer, and everything we do in terms of national messaging and escalation we do together these days. We don't make decisions anymore that impact each other without first going through that process. I personally meet the chiefs of all the health organisations every single week to go through exactly those kind of issues. So it might not be in our gift, but I think we're very much collaborating. In terms of safeguarding and issues on home care, obviously there are issues. We monitor all home care provision. We deal with about 900 queries a year on providers and concerns about quality, and if we need to, we act, and if we really need to and there's a severe problem, we'll go in and take over the care ourselves. So I don't take that lightly, and we do investigate everything that we're sent. Homelessness, we haven't mentioned that specifically. Very much, again, I see that as one of the big join-ups with district and boroughs and public health working more closely with me now. And of course, all those things are interconnected. Quite often, a homeless person might have mental health issues and other issues that we'll be involved in too. So we absolutely do need to focus that, and that may be one of the things that comes back from the user feedback. Lastly, I'll just touch on, and Sandra, I'm sure you'll comment too, about Councillor Stamborough's question about how we'll ensure we've got the resources and capacity. So it's twofold, really. Obviously, we plan what we've got to do in terms of the budget this year and the staffing we've got. Absolutely, we have a real challenge in capacity of staffing, but I also think our processes, going back to the thing about re-engineering them, looking at the pathways, are very risk averse and very intensive in terms of handoffs between people. We've already seen, for example, we've just done a piece of work at the front door in the customer contact centre about people who double handle queries. As a result of doing that, we've taken about a third of the volume out of the system, which means for the first time customer services can actually do some proactivity stuff in the front door rather than passing everything back onto the service. So there is a plan for a wholesale review of all of our processes and pathways to try and release productivity so that people can focus on the things that matter and not just handing off things to each other. So it's always a challenge. Last year we had a 20% rise in demand in the service. Having the resources to meet that, always difficult, but obviously our job and my job and the team's job is to try and do the best we can with what we can, and part of that will be about using what else we've got outside with partners.
Thank you, Anna. Just before Sandra comes in, I just wanted to reference back to the session we had yesterday evening on the briefing on local government reform and the Children's Trust, and I think the phrase was used, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really deal with, integrate with health on the future of adult social care. So this discussion document that we've got before us today is a very timely piece on that account. Sandra, if you could just finish, please.
Yeah, I just don't want to say too much, only just to say that Chris, it's about having meaningful conversations like Anna alluded to. This is an ideal opportunity now to get it right going forward for the unitary councils, and I welcome the challenge. I'm sure Ian will welcome the challenge, not me, but Ian will welcome the challenge. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Cabinet, do we agree the report?
Yes.
Thank you. So move on to item 8, delivering infrastructure-led growth, digital connectivity and business support in Northamptonshire. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this is a prime example of big thinking, I think, in this county, heading towards unitary as well, because a lot of this will help shape how the unitaries develop and how they deliver going forward. But it is it's quite a wide subject matter covered in here, because it's to deliver infrastructure, digital connectivity and business support in Northamptonshire. So many of those things, I think we all look forward to having a full capacity on all of those. But what it does show is how good we are at getting funding in from government, working with our partners. On this one, we'll be working with England's economic heartland, SEMLEP, the university, the Chamber of Commerce, the local boroughs and districts, and of course indeed government. And this all plays a part in how we will move forward in the new unitaries, and particularly the infrastructure, because that is highly vital. Often the complaint from lots of people is that infrastructure doesn't come soon enough or doesn't come quick enough in the county, and it comes often after development. So this sort of paper, I think, will help set out some priorities going forward. But in short, it covers a short, medium and longer term activities, and it helps shape our ambitions for this county as well as for the unitaries. So there are sort of several strands to it. There's a strategic infrastructure plan, which will have some ambitious agenda for investment in infrastructure across all the pieces, so transport, digital, energy, skills, the environment and other key topics. Without this work going now, we would possibly miss out on some key developments in the country for various new forms of technology like 5G and things like that, and we need to be ahead of that game. Even though we will be 2 unitaries in the not too distant future, we need to start that work now. We're also looking at the Smart Move Northamptonshire, which is smart technologies for various areas within the county. And then there's enhanced digital technology, which is basically support of rural broadband, which of course is something that we've been working on for a number of years, and we are still aiming towards our coverage targets. We've secured 2 million extra support for rural broadband delivery. As we know, and as I know, certainly as a rural county councillor, some of the coverage is still patchy, to say the least. Even though it is rolling out in significant numbers across the county, there are still areas that require connection, and this will hopefully help move that forward. We also want to make sure that development contributes to the cost of infrastructure on various levels, so obviously our roads and highways, but also our digital infrastructure and various things like that. So it's important that we have some sort of plan in place, knowing where those developments are going to go and what people can contribute from the developers. And then we want to help support business, because obviously we want to make sure that we get lots of local businesses, and obviously we have issues with some of our town centres and things like that, and going forward we need to support business and make sure that they're attracted to Northamptonshire in various different ways. We also want to try and get as much funding as we can for joint projects across the piece. So wherever, for instance, the university might be doing a project and we can plug into that and be involved with that, we would help raise the money to do that. So it's a very broad piece of work, but I think as it moves forward, there will be some really quite exciting developments to come out of it. So all I can do is commend the paper to Cabinet and wish Jason luck with taking it forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Scott, question?
I defer to Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Chairman. And may I take this opportunity, Chairman, if you don't mind, to wish Councillor Morris the very, very best in his new position on the Cabinet. This is a lengthy report, Chairman, and I've got some questions. I start off on page 46, 3.2, mentions the demise of NEP and the involvement working with Semlet since. Question, what would you say in terms of benefit has the county gained or received as a result of the relationship? Same page 3.3, mention NCC's activities, including initiatives to support business growth and enhance skill levels to help people access jobs. Could you give, or could you furnish us with examples of the type of support given, please? Page 47, 3.7, reference are made to the Chamber of Commerce Business Survey, which gives a rather negative reflection on business within this county. What support, if any, is NCC given to businesses to reverse this trend? The report is mixed and confusing to some extent, because the second part refers to managerial, professional, and skill shortage. So my question is similar. What, if any, is NCC doing to assist with the skill shortages reported by this survey? Considering, Chairman, Tresham lost £11 million from Semlet, and the number of apprenticeships has gone down. 4.1, same page, with reference to the growth deal for Northamptonshire. How much of the £80 million mentioned, £80 million capital investment, have been delivered to date? What are they, and how much of the remainder is likely to be delivered? Page 48, 4.2, 2 years or so ago, Chairman, I asked the then leader, why is it that Northamptonshire is not included in the Cambridge, Milton Keynes, Oxford ARC? And I was told, we are on the committee. I attend their meetings. Question, have this council got representation on this body, and if so, in what capacity? I asked the question, Chairman.
You can finish up, please, Councillor Strachan.
I asked the question, Chairman, because in 4.8 on page 49, opens up alarm bells. And the last 2 lines of paragraph reads, indeed, government has already agreed growth deals with Cambridgeshire and Northamptonshire.
That's 3 minutes, Councillor Strachan. Thank you.
Could I leave this?
Yeah, leave them. We'll take that away and pass it to Councillor Morris, because there's lots of questions in there, and we're not going to be able to answer them straight off the cuff, I understand. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Bowen.
Right. My questions are twofold. First of all, just to comment on Councillor Strachan's questions, I also felt that the report was actually quite complex and challenging to understand. And I sort of refer back to the Calla report about doing the boring well. And all of this sounds super duper. But there is still about 5% of the population that still have basic connectivity issues in the county. And it's not just in urban areas. I mean, in my area, in Wootton, they've had real problems in trying to get the basic connectivity. And so the one question is, what does NCC do to push people like BT to make sure that they do what they say they're going to do? And the second question is, how can NCC help with the new developments, the new housing developments, where sometimes connectivity plans seem to be missed off the development plans and are sort of an afterthought? Perhaps you could answer those two for me.
Thank you. Some simple questions there. I just wanted to make some positive points. I think this is a really good report. We've done very well in getting investment in, as you pointed out at the start. Reference SEMLEP and the government's industrial strategy. SEMLEP are about to release their local industrial strategy, and we need to align ourselves to that. And we're going to be working on with the district and borough leaders our own local industrial strategy and, local infrastructure strategy, sorry. So we've got to make sure all of our wishes and all of our needs feed straight into the SEMLEP strategy that then leads into the government industrial strategy to make sure it's as successful as possible. Councillor Morris, if you want to finish off.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Strachan, we will answer those. Has he gone? Oh, well, we will answer his questions in detail, but the main point about this paper is that this is it's an ambitious paper. A lot of these things will start to form as we go through the process of working the streams out. So I would hope that a lot of it the answers will come out at a later date. But in terms of SEMLEP, we've had a lot of benefit from SEMLEP over the years. I will answer specifically his questions in detail, and we are on the board of SEMLEP now. Indeed, the leader's now on the board there as well, which he wasn't for a while as an oversight, I think, but we will be benefiting from our involvement with SEMLEP. There's no doubt about it, because they pretty much fund part of or most of all our infrastructure developments that we do here. So the relief road, the bypasses, all those sort of things are partly funded by them. And without SEMLEP's money, it would be very difficult for us to build anything in this county. So I think, although we had our own NEP, and that was very beneficial to us here in Northamptonshire, we can't underestimate that SEMLEP are a very important part of the piece, as it were. Councillor Bowen, yes. the connectivity problem is an issue in rural areas. I've always said this. It's no good aiming for a 96% coverage if the 4% odd that are not covered are all in the rural areas, which is why, not just rural, but I agree we need to come up with some solutions for that. And one of those is this £2 million that we have got of extra funding to go towards helping with the rural connectivity. But we've got several contracts going. So we've got BT, we've got GigaClear who are working in various of the grey spots in the county, and the connectivity is improving. I mean, GigaClear alone have connected 1,450 premises to date to full fibre. So that's a good start, and they haven't been going that long. Openreach have served over 18,000 premises under contract too. So we are slowly getting there. But my point has always been, if you even have 1% of the county that isn't covered, then in my view, we haven't succeeded. So we must find a way of connecting those final 1%. And BT themselves, of course, are a little bit of a law unto themselves, I think it's fair to say, but we are very good at trying to manage them, and quite often they are paying penalties now for non-delivery under their contracts. And all that money, and that it adds up to quite a bit of money, a few million in some cases, that is being ploughed back into those areas. So where BT may fail, we do penalise them, and we use that money in order to help connect elsewhere in the county. So I think we've got some more work to do on it, and we need to make sure it's as near to 100% as we can get it, and I think we will get there eventually. But you can be reassured that we are working as hard as we can to do that.
And the other?
I've forgotten what the other bit was that you asked there.
Housing developments.
Yeah, I mean, again, looking forward, though, as we go into unitaries, the planning policy opportunities that I think we have with the 2 new unitaries, we'll be able to prioritise things like that in the planning system. At the moment, I know it's not always a priority for the planning authorities as they stand, but once we're in these unitary situations, I think we can all push for it to be a priority for the infrastructure to be there for things like the internet and things like that before the development or paid for by the developers. So yes, certainly that was something that we'd all like to see, I think. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And just to add, we are fully engaged with Oxford-Cambridge ARC, and as we are with England's economic heartland, and they all feed in through the likes of SEMLIP to make sure we're pulling the best out of all of these big infrastructure bodies. So, Cabinet, are we happy to agree the report? Yeah, thank you. So item 9 is the East Kettering Junction improvements. Councillor Morris again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, this is another great example of how we work well with our borough and district colleagues. This is basically, we're delivering this on behalf of Kettering. It's a major bit of infrastructure that they're going to get as a result of a big new housing development that they've got in the east of Kettering, which is delivering 5,500 homes. So we've been asked to deliver it on their behalf, and we're very happy to do so. Developer obligations have been secured via 106 and various other off-site to provide these off-site junction improvements that are referred to here. Kettering will collect the money, and then we will do the works on their behalf. Because of this, we've had to, because of the way it works, because it's over £500,000, we have to have a paper to Cabinet so that everyone, it's transparent and everyone approves of it. The first junction will be Windmill Avenue, Deeble Road, which has already been delivered. The Barton Road, Cranford Road is planned to start in July. The other junctions will follow as the money is received by the Borough Council, and then the design work will progress. This will probably all complete once we're into a unitary, but still, again, it's good to start it now. All the county councillors within these wards that are affected have been offered a briefing opportunity with the scheme project manager, Gareth Harmer. But of course, I'm very willing to speak to them about it as well. But so, in short, Chair, very good news.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Scott, question?
Defer to Councillor Hales.
Are you the ward councillor, Councillor Hales?
Yes.
Thank you.
And actually 4 of them junctions are in my division. I mean, I really welcome this, but I mean, I'm especially pleased, especially around Junction E, because we actually had to fight for that one. Because when they did the original assessments, they said the traffic flow didn't actually warrant any work done on that junction. But that junction actually leads onto, if you don't know where it is, you've got Wicksteed Park here at the T junction, you've got Tresham School, you've got the Catholic School, SEN School, and they didn't take into account when the park was in full flow, especially on public holidays and during the school holidays, because Kettering can become actually gridlocked when the park has special events in there. So I really am pleased. So if any push can, at the remaining ones, I'd like E done before the others, because it does cause major problems. But I know there is a lot of tree felling and that around, because we actually sit on the East of Kettering Forum, but it has been a lot of hard work to actually get that one recognised as being needed to be done as part of the development going forward. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Morris?
I thank Councillor Hales for her observation, and obviously we'll see what we can do, who knows. But it is also worth observing that that development has brought in about £6.3 million of 106 money for Kettering Borough Council, and that will provide a lot of road and highways improvements around the area. I just thought I'd add that in.
Yeah,
thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Cabinet, we happy to agree with the report?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 10, new safeguarding partnership arrangements. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. As you say, this is a report for notification of the local safeguarding arrangement plan for 2019 to 21. The report shows why we're making changes from a board to a partnership, the legislation under which this is taking place and the opportunities that this will bring to us. By the three strategic lead agencies having equal responsibility for safeguarding arrangements in the county going forward, this will create a much more flexible, proactive response to holding each other and other partner agencies to account in the future. The subgroups under the strategic leads have been restructured so that there is a subgroup for each of the three key priorities over the next year. And the board has to agree its own scrutiny arrangements, and the commission of an independent scrutineer who will maintain the independence required, and they'll be very proactive in overseeing the quality and governance and speak directly with children, young people and their families to understand what works well for them, what concerns them, etc. This will strengthen the previous arrangements and keep them at the heart of everything that we do. There is a proposal for 2 conferences a year, as a board will no longer exist. This will be an opportunity for a larger group of professionals to come together and to hear and discuss the key issues in the county. Our first conference under the banner of the new partnership is scheduled for the 26th of September, with a theme on child exploitation and particular focus on organised crime, gang activity. We're currently drafting a programme on this and will include young people's voices and their experiences. These new arrangements will be published on the NSCB website at the end of June, and there is a requirement for them to be embedded in by the end of September 2019. Part of this work will include engaging closely with schools to understand how we can ensure that we have a very good understanding and oversight across all the educational services in the county. So I recommend this report to the Cabinet.
Councillor Scott.
Defer to Councillor Stone.
Sorry.
Thank you. Given the briefing that we had before Cabinet, it must surely be true that this reorganised way of doing things is to be welcomed, and so the question is going to be at what point will we be able to judge its effectiveness, isn't it? How long are we going to give it before we have an evaluation of how effective it's going to be? I have got some questions. On page 18, we're given the funding contributions from the partners, but we're not given any indication of what the cost of this particular service is going to be and what costs are involved. So we haven't got the overall cost or the breakdown of costs. So I'd be curious about that. It seems to me we've got two really, really serious issues. One is a lack of trust by all the agencies, including schools, and trainers, I've reported on that before, that have got safeguarding concerns with children. People do not trust us, and schools have made that very clear to me, that they do not. And I've already reported before on my latest safeguarding training, the trainer told us all not to report things into NCC because we weren't doing a good enough job. And I feel really bad about that. So we've got, that is something that we have got to transform and change, isn't it? But the other big issue is the comment that partnerships haven't been working, and we need to really reflect on why that is. And it seems to me that the instability in NCC over the last 5-6 years has been stark. We've had I think we've had 10 heads of virtual schools, we've had 5 CEOs, we've had 5 DCSs, and that is a huge instability. But that is reflected in our partnerships as well. There's been instability in all the partner agencies, and I think that's profoundly unhelpful. I'm very curious to know whether the child exploitation team was consulted before the decision was made to make 18-year-olds destitute. So this is the group of 18-year-olds that are all appeal rights exhausted. You've agreed at the last Cabinet to make those 18-year-olds destitute, which makes them very vulnerable to exploitation. So I just wonder if there's been any consultation around that. There is a group of children, or there are groups of children that are missing from any consideration in this report, and I'm really anxious about those young people. So children missing from education, children who have been excluded from education, children who are being home educated, and children who are being off-rolled. These are children that are in particular vulnerable, it seems to me.
Okay, could you finish off now, please?
Just one last point, Chair, if you don't mind. In the papers, I think it's on page 12, it seems to suggest that children living in disadvantaged circumstances are most at risk, and that may be true. But we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that children in very well-off families can also be at huge risk of neglect, victims of domestic abuse, and all kinds of vulnerabilities.
Okay,
so we
you,
mustn't take our eye off those children either.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hang on, Fiona, sorry. Councillor Stanborough first.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, no doubt that this is something that is needed, perhaps never more than now, given what we've heard over the past little while regarding serious case reviews and other things too. And one of the things that has got to be welcome is the element of independent scrutiny that's been built into this. So some questions around that. How will the independent scrutineer be recruited? Who appoints the independent scrutineer? What powers does the independent scrutineer have? And what sanctions will the independent scrutineer have in the event that he or she feels that the partnership isn't perhaps doing the things that they should be doing?
Thank you. I'd just like to ask Sally as well if you're happy with where this report has come to, given where we were before, and the obvious need, given the briefing we had about how the partnership needs to improve, needs to communicate better, needs to work together. Are you satisfied that this should push us in the right trajectory? And also, are we? Is there a role of members in here, and what will be the channel to feedback through members, so we've got some oversight of that as well?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll kind of do this in reverse order, if that's all right, and answer your questions first. I am satisfied that the arrangements that are proposed for the board are the new partnership are strong arrangements, and certainly the early conversations I've had with my what will be partnership colleagues from health and police, the three essential elements of this partnership are very robust, and there is a very, very strong commitment to make sure that our arrangements are more effective as we go forward. So I would say those early conversations have been really helpful. In terms of scrutiny, the board will be the body who appoints their scrutineer, but they will have to be an independent person. They are not a member of the partnership, so it's kind of stand at one side. There will be a host employer. Somebody has to employ this person for pay and rations purposes, but their function is to be independent in that regard and to provide us support and challenge. So that as a board we can be focused on the things that we need to be focusing on, and certainly the priorities that the partnership has decided are those that it wants to concentrate on for the immediate and mid-term. Looking back at some of the earlier questions, in respect of children missing education and are off-road, yes, absolutely, I understand concerns. I share those concerns about that cohort of children. Rest assured that we have very robust processes in-house here in the council about identifying and tracking those children and pursuing their well-being wherever we can. And we have conversations with our regional schools commissioner about those children when they are in academy schools. And indeed, we had one of those very conversations last week. Children, sorry, I'm just trying to read my own writing here. The issue of trust, I think, is an interesting one here in particular. From where I'm standing now as a new person in the authority, I would say that the relationships that we have with our partners are improving. I clearly wasn't here in the past to be part of any difficulties that existed then, should they have done. But I can say that in the conversations that I have, that element of trust is improving over time. Certainly at strategic level, it's beginning to feel like it is emerging, and there is a shared commitment to make sure that things improve. On an operational basis at the front door, then those relationships between professionals also seem to be working reasonably well. So I think I accept that there is a journey for us to go on about this over time, but I would say from where I'm sitting that things seem to be improving.
Thank you, Sally. Councillor Baker, did you want to pick up any points?
I was just going to say that any other questions that we go through that we've listed that Councillor Stone did give us that we haven't answered, we will come back to her with an email later on when we've got the answers that she needs. And I just want to, the two things, I have been visiting schools recently and I was at Western Flayville Academy, which is quite a challenging school in our county, the week before half term, and had a very good afternoon with the head teacher there, and we have a very good relationship with her now. So I think trust is being built in various ways across the county. I just want to mention at this point and put on to our minutes our thanks to the chairman of our Safeguarding Board, Keith Makin, who was always planning to stand down. It's not a quick decision that he's made, but he did decide that he would stay with us until we had got our reviews out. Yes, so he did. This was his decision to stay until this was over, and will be now leaving us, so we will be moving on, and we thank him very much for all the very good work that he has done on our behalf during his time with us.
Thank you. Yeah, just to agree and endorse that, thanks. So, Cabinet, are we happy to agree the report? Thank you. So, item 11, the Children's Services Improvement Plan. Please note this is for information only. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. The Children's Services Improvement Plan is quite a detailed document which has come to Council fairly recently. There's an awful lot of work been going on in here, and I know that Councillor Golby and myself have been involved with this at every stage, along with our CEO, Teresa Grant, and our DCS, Sally Hodges. We think it is a very good document. We would like you to have good time to look through it at your leisure. And this has now come out into the public domain once people have approved it here, and we will be sending it to all members so that you can all, everybody on the council will be able to have a look at it and see what they think. It's a very, very well thought out document to my mind. Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Defer to Councillor Stone, but can I make the comment that we were very disappointed at the late arrival of this document? It doesn't really give time to really go through it and give concise questions on it.
Noted, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to echo that because I'd like to have more time to read and digest what is in this document. So just some very quick observations. I read the Commissioner's recommendations and I thought, well, I've read those before. You know, so we're 6 years into an improvement journey and, you know, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So we want to see those improvements and we want to see them sooner rather than later, don't we? And it's a bit disconcerting having the same things put into an improvement plan and we're still kind of where we were before. So it scares me a little bit, I have to say. I do think that we need to look to see what good practice is all about. And, you know, I take really, really seriously the advice that we've been given, which is about triangulation. So not just listening to one voice, but listening to the end users, but also to the partners to test out whether what we're doing is working. So I would like to see that built into the improvement plan, that whole process of triangulation. I'm really disappointed at 1.4 to read again stuff about commissioning without any qualification because we know our commissioning practice has not worked. It hasn't been good. And we need to consider different models. And one of the models that the Labour group keeps offering, keeps talking about, is co-designing and co-delivery. And I think we really need to test that to see if that is going to be indeed a transformation and a better way of doing things. And then talking about transformation, we have a section here called the Transformation Programme, and I keep reading it, and I keep reading it, and the question I keep asking, is this transformation, or are these service cuts? And I think we need to be much clearer and much more transparent about what it is that we are changing, that is transformation. For example, where is it? The review of UASC accommodation. That certainly does need transformation. I would be the first one to shout hooray if that happens, but I need to know what that means in this programme because what it looks like here is a cut, not a transformation. And we need to be much clearer about what it is we're actually saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stammer.
Thank you, Chair. So, note with interest that this is before you for information only. You're not being asked to approve it. So the first question, therefore, is, or several questions, who owns this document? Who was or is the approver? And who is responsible for the delivery of what is a massive plan, absolutely massive. There are so many different things in here that the service is being asked to do, which gives rise to the second point, similar to one I raised earlier. How will we ensure that the resources and capacity are available to the service area to ensure delivery of this improvement plan?
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to add a couple of points. Councillor Scrimshaw asked us earlier about this plan going to scrutiny, and that will be one of its destinations for scrutiny to look over. So we look forward to that happening. I just want to come back on one of the points Councillor Stone made, and I was going to mention this anyway. She talked about good practice and learning from good practice. And we've got the Children's Care Improvement Board, and at that we have some colleagues from Lincolnshire through the Partners in Practice arrangement, and it became very, very clear to me at the last meeting a couple of weeks ago the immense value that those group of colleagues are adding to the improvement journey in children's services. So I wrote a letter last week to the leader of Lincolnshire to thank him and to ask him to thank those staff involved in our improvement journey, because it's very, very clear that they're offering and adding an immense amount of value, and they are, I think, they're an outstanding authority, and they're sharing that practice with us. So that is happening. In terms of transformation, I don't know if Paul Helsby wanted to pick up on any of the points made by Councillor Stone about transformation and, you know, the cornerstones of some of those to the improvement as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very large amount of work to get through. There is a programme team that's working with Sally. One of the things that you'll read through this is that the ownership and responsibility is clearly aligned and designed through the plan. So there's a golden thread there that comes back to Sally and Teresa and myself and the rest of the corporate management team and Sally's team who are responsible. And what this plan does is sets out those responsibilities really clearly. My team are working with the service to ensure that ownership's embedded and that we're working with them to support them to deliver it. And there are some things that are transformational in here and there are some things that just need to be put right. And the transformational aspects of that, when you start something like this, you discover as you go through the kinds of things that you can do that work, that you can do more of. In terms of property and all those things, it would be transformational if we can ensure that more of the children in Northamptonshire can actually access services locally rather than miles away. That would transform what we do. Does it save money? Yes, it does save money. Part of this has to save money, but that's because we've got too much money tied up in too many expensive packages. So that has to be released so that we can support more of the children effectively. And the way that we do that is look at how we can build that infrastructure, not just infrastructure, it's about capacity as well, so that more special guardianships are better than foster care placements, that are better than residential placements. So we seek to do that throughout the whole programme, wherever we have the opportunity to do that. So it's about where the costs are locked in that we need to work on to release them so that we can do things better.
Councillor Perry, I see you indicate. Did you want to come and ask a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I welcome the report. I think it's an excellent piece of work. And I think importantly that I know that Councillor Baker, in terms of triangulation, is going to the front line of service to get the real picture, having learnt from in the past, just accepting what's been told, is that we've kind of had our fingers burnt, and she's definitely going out and doing that really well. And I think the report reflects that. One area of concern I've got is I think we all know to deliver this, we are going to be relying on workforce. And whilst we have some incredibly good staff in children's currently, we know that needs to improve. And as a Vice Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, with a responsibility for looking at children's, I'm aware that we put a report to Cabinet on recruitment and retention of social workers with recommendations. And those recommendations were acknowledged and accepted, but as part of that report, there was meant to be feedback coming to Overview and Scrutiny, which is now well overdue. I know Fiona's been chasing that for me, but I just wanted to say publicly, could we bring that forward as fast as possible, along with the requested monthly figures, the dashboard that Scrutiny have requested was agreed it was going to come on a monthly basis, but we haven't been getting it. So if we want to help you, we want to help push forward this improvement plan, we also need that information to come back to us so we can do that function. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sally, did you want to come back on any of the points raised?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely, I will pursue the issue of the feedback and the dashboard, because that should be coming through. That should have been rolling through as a matter of standard issue to come out to members. What I would say about this document is that it's a living document. So we revise it, we review it every month. We have to report against it every month to the Children's Commissioner and the Improvement Board. And the Improvement Board actually has members who attend that, but it also has representatives from the Assistant Chief Constable, senior officers from Health. So it is quite a broad church of people to whom we are accountable for the improvements in this plan. So it's not just County Council who have oversight of it, it is other partners as well who are involved in it and understand it and will support us as we try and deliver the improvements.
I just wanted to add that I endorse and agree with Councillor Stone's frustration about the fact that she says that things have been said in the past and haven't happened. I can't speak for what happened in the past at all, But I do know now that we have a very, very dedicated team of officers at the top of our children's service now, and I am very involved with all of them and their daily work, and I have copied into everything that goes on in children's services. And as a team, we are working exceedingly hard with great passion to make this service as good as it can be for the children in our county. We do not want it to remain as it was in the past. We want to move forward.
Thank you. I'll just add as well, whatever anybody says about the past, the fact is that this is our current improvement plan, and we've got to demonstrate that corporately, whether we're members or officers, that we're prepared to stand by this and drive it through the right channels, whether that's ownership of politically or whether that's the officers pushing the improvement. And we've got to support the organisation in the best way we can by using the likes of scrutiny as well as a tool to do that, to push improvement, because we know, and it's been highlighted this week, that there is a lot of work still to do. Sally, did you want to come back again?
Just one final comment about recruitment and retention and the council's reputation. We know that's a challenge for us at the moment, and we would welcome support from any member about how we can improve on that. But also, when members and others are having conversations about what's happening in children's services, it'd be helpful to recognise actually there are some elements of children's services which are really good. And we are being able to recruit some people. We've had a conversation with a manager night before last, basically who had left our authority in 2014. And has recently come back and said, it's one hell of a lot better than it was then, and I'm really glad I came back. And I think those messages are really important to be getting out there, because that helps us in recruiting more people to return to us.
Thank you. Paul, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, thank you. Just to add to what I said before, I know we've not had long to read the plan, so in terms of any further reading you do of the plan, I'd just like to make the point that Sally's team and my team are working together. So what you'll see around the status of things and whether they've been done or not, we're not just checking whether something's been done through this process. We're actually supporting to make sure we understand what the impact's been of what we've done, and that's something that's quite different to what's happened in the past. So we've checked whether we've done something, not necessarily looked at the long-term impact of that. And that's really important about that loop of plan, do, review and adapt that we need to continually build into the way that we work. So I would just like to point out that we're just not measuring whether it's been done. This plan and the work that we do on a weekly basis that Sally's just described and how we monitor this is measuring the impact of those things as well.
Thank you. Cabinet, are we happy to note the report? Thank you. Okay, we've got one item of urgent business. We don't have to exclude the public and press, do we? Yeah, that's what I was just saying. But that's down as an urgent business item. We don't have to exclude public and press, do we? No,
it's not an exclusion.
Okay. So this is the contract extension for services to support young people in Northamptonshire that are not or at risk of being in education, training or employment needs. And Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. This is about support services. We have a contract with an organisation called Prospects, who undertake to assist our looked after children, special needs, young offenders and care leavers. Due to the budget restrictions, we have had to reduce the amount of money that we are able to pay them on our contract, and the company are happy to take that on board and agree to carry on in the way that they're doing at the moment if we can see our way to extending their contract for a further year. The organisation are content to continue working with NCC, and the maximum cost for this will be 907